everyone. Welcome to, well, I should say the last of this long series. Some of you will be happy it's over, but I think it's been a very good one, and I'm sure it will be concluded with very interesting work. Our final session is with Maria Chiara Arioli. Maria Chiara Arioli is Marie Slodkowska-Curie Global Fellow at the Universities of Ca' Foscari in Venice and Fordham in New York, with the RailNet project entitled Entangled Interfaith Identities and Relations from the Mediterranean to the United States, the St. James Association and its transnational Christian-Jewish network in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Maria Chiara was previously postdoctoral fellow at the University of Paris-Est, Marne-la-Vallée, and project manager of the ERC Open Jerusalem project. She received a PhD in contemporary history at the Scuola Normale Superiore in Pisa, and among her many publications, I would like to mention A Liminal Church, Refugees, Conversions, and the Latin Diocese of Jerusalem, 1946. And it's about the Open Jerusalem project, I think, that she's talking about today. The title is Delving into Jerusalem's Archives, History, Religions and Languages, a methodological workshop. So we conclude with an example of an archive and a focus on archive for cultural history, I could say, from our own point of view, because I think it will be interesting to historians, to scholars in literature, in language, in history of religion and everything. Thank you very much, Maria Chiara, for accepting this invitation, and it's up to you to start delving into Jerusalem's archives.
Thank you, Professor Marina. Thank you for this invitation, and thank you to all of you for attending this webinar. And so it's important during these pandemic times to being able to sharing our work and our research gives further sense and encouragement to our daily activities. So thank you again. Today, I would like to give a short introduction of the Open Jerusalem project, and then to work collectively on the database. So that's why I entitled the seminar Methodological, but also a practical workshop, creating together some path of research. And then we will devote the last part of the workshop in sharing the results and the comments, the corrections that you will identify and detect on the database. I aim at exploring with you some connections of digital public history, urban history, archives, and the concrete application of historical databases. To touch these points, I will address a case study, that one of Open Jerusalem, but also, of Jerusalem itself, of research founding. One of the project founded was the Open Jerusalem project, entitled Opening Jerusalem Archives for a Connected History of Citadinité in the Holy City, 1940. The project is directed by Van Salemir, and I am the project manager. And we will test together the Open Jerusalem database, which contains 38,000 items, and is still the work is still ongoing. So why Jerusalem? Jerusalem is undoubtedly one of the cities that receives the most attention from the media and the general audience. We can say that in the collective imagination, Jerusalem gathers opposite symbols and realities, religions and extremism, peace and war. And also the historiography on Jerusalem is, we can say, in conflict. The available bibliography on the history of the city, though immense and from a quantitative perspective, is often lacking from a qualitative one. It is plagued by three major flaws. First, most studies are devoted either to ancient or medieval history or to very recent history of the city, after the 1948 war and the city partition. The Ottoman period and the British Mandate I are decidedly less studied. Nevertheless, the administrative reforms in the 1940s favored the emergence of institutions which furthered the shared city identity, transcending communitarian barrier. So this period is poorly studied because it contradicts the teleological narrative of an eternal and never-ending conflict. The second flaw stems in part from the first. The overwhelming majority of existing studies focus on religious and geopolitical aspects of the city's history. And thus, Jerusalem appears as a jumble of shrines or as a battlefield. The third flaw is probably the most serious one, because most Jerusalem historians limit their studies to the history of only one community of the Holy City, thus contributing to the creation of a segmented historical narrative that precludes a more sweeping view of the city. Geopolitical and linguistic constraints led international researchers to work from the sources they can access and are able to study or identify, and this increases the fragmentation of historical narratives of the city. Historical work on Jerusalem is moreover frequently accompanied by political or religious claims about the city's present or future, which further increase the initial problems. These three flaws lead to the same result: a history of Jerusalem as is segmented and de-urbanized. These last few years, and the awareness of these problems has grown somewhat in light of the hopes born in the so-called peace process in the 90s and early 2000 years, and the work of Israeli and Palestinian new historians. Several historians have become increasingly aware about the necessity of developing and deepening our understanding of the history of the city. And the need today is a history of the indigenous social and political dynamics of an urban system. It is not necessarily oriented toward today's great geopolitical and religious conflicts alone. The widest all in the literature on Jerusalem is the answer to the question how it is and how it was Jerusalem governed. How can one write a history of Jerusalem without the inhabitants of Jerusalem, whether they are Orthodox monks or local businessmen or members of the Ottoman administration or midwives, teachers, or other women, men, or children? The Open Jerusalem project strives to identify and implement methods for overcoming these stumbling blocks. This project reveals a poorly known aspect of the history of Jerusalem, an age of possibilities during which a common city identity coexisted alongside individual religious identities. In doing this, it's helpful the concept of citadinité, which is to the city what citizenship is to the nation. In other words, a form of urban citizenship. Truly and enduringly decompartmentalizing Jerusalem historiographies means finding ways of opening up and interconnecting its archives, which is central to this new research project. Open Jerusalem is a community of historians working on Jerusalem as a common ground, is therefore a shared historiographic and archival forum, and a tool for exchanging and especially correlating data. Citadinité is not a vague notion, but it is not only a discursive category. On the contrary, it materializes in institutions, actors, and practices. That is why we must begin with the archives if we are to track down the places and modalities of this factory of citadinité. This history must be a bottom-up history of the city, and is also a connected one, because within a complex documentary archipelago, it looks for points of contact that show the exchanges, interactions, and sometimes hybridization between different traditions. We can envision four paths. The first one is the public space. Contrary to what the historiographic tradition has long maintained, the notion of public space is not absent from Muslim cities and must be studied together with municipal, judicial, and imperial level. Founded in 1863, the Municipality of Jerusalem quickly availed itself of agents whose job it was to defend public space against private incursions, and the Municipal Archives show evidence of a discourse defending public interest against the self-interest of individuals. In addition to the municipality, the court judge had a deputy at his disposal, whose job it was to maintain urban good order. Public time is another category we can explore later also in our work. Jerusalem religious diversity makes the notion of public time problematic, so it is integral to the notion of urban collectivity. Whether the hours of the day, the weekly calendar, or the calendar of yearly religious holidays, it would seem at first glance that Jerusalem time is in pieces. In fact, points of interest abound. They're more fascinating because they don't exist by default, but because an effort on the part of the inhabitants themselves. I can give you one example. The inauguration in 1907 of a tall clock tower within the center of the city in Jaffa Gate, founded by a public interfaith collection and later destroyed by communitarian time and a public shared and secularized time outside of the temporalities of each religion. Public notion, public opinion is another notion that we can identify and explore through precise categories in the database. Beyond the specific identities of each of Jerusalem, for example, in the series of Archives of Istanbul, we find several letters from Jerusalem on different subjects, from taxes to hygiene, water, food supplies, aid for people, various reports on religious practices, and it is fascinating to look for what requests were made and by whom, which historical traditions were alluded to, and what connections may have existed between the traditions we currently perceive as being necessarily divided. Public knowledge is the first path I would like to explore with you. Since Jerusalem has always been a city of schools, teaching, and libraries. In the second half of the 19th century, we clearly see in the Holy City an increase in the flow and exchange of knowledge in a process of hybridization that helped bring about a shared urbanity. Studying the stacks of great family libraries founded during this period gives us a sense of the linguistic and cultural perspectives of urban notabilities. And it's interesting also to note the lives of religious schools. We discovered that contrary to what one might believe, even in Jerusalem, families often place their children in schools outside their own faith. The free exchange of public knowledge can therefore reveal unexpected connections between different scholastic and academic traditions in the Holy City. The study of Jerusalem history requires numerous linguistic, historical, political, and archival competencies. That's why the continuous involvement of a large team of historians, archivists, librarians, and curators from Europe, coordinated by a core team directed by Van Salemir, has allowed the Open Jerusalem project to continue the never-ending goal to unlock the history of an extraordinarily ordinary city, this Jerusalem. At this focus with you on some specific documentary deposits that we will identify later in the database. The first one is the Imperial Archives. So as I was mentioning before, Jerusalem Municipal Council is a very important institution in the history of the city. It came into existence in the early 1860s. Jerusalem was in fact one of the first cities within the Ottoman Empire to form a municipality. So the minutes of city council meetings, so these kind of documents from the late Ottoman period, which are held at the Historical Archives of Jerusalem Municipality, are invaluable in putting the urban and material facets of Jerusalem history front and center, and to making a first attempt to connect the history of the city. So they provide a fascinating glimpse into the inner workings of these mixed institutions because the municipal council was composed by different faith and different professions. So it was really a multifaceted institution. And the publication of this collection is available on the website, as we will see later. And it allows to other sources primarily contained in the Ottoman Imperial Archives in Istanbul. We conducted an intense, large-scale survey on the enormous mass of documents preserved at the Ottoman Imperial Archives. And now more than 5,000 digitized documents are available in the website in Ottoman, Turkish, and English. The British Mandate administration produced also a large amount of documentation disseminated in a constellation of archives. The British National Archives, located in London, Kew Gardens, they constitute obviously a mine of sources, and we selected some records and rewrite the description of several items. But also the mandate period can be analyzed through different types of reports, such as the collections contained in the Historical Archives of Jerusalem Municipality that I was mentioning before, and other consular archives, for example, also the French, the British, the Italian, the Greek, and the United States records. Within the Open Jerusalem project, we devoted particular interest to the Italian consulate archives in Jerusalem, which are located in the Foreign Office archives in Rome. And we discovered uncatalogued boxes that we identified and for which we created brand new inventories, which are now available for scholars in Rome. Other sources are related to local Islamic institutions. For example, the Sharia court records constitute one of the richest sources for the social and economic history of Jerusalem. These records deal with all realms of human interaction, from personal affairs to economic contracts to building permits and civil and criminal cases. So they represent the oldest and most complete collection of Ottoman-era court registers in Palestine. And now we have available the volumes for the late Ottoman period digitized in the Open Jerusalem website. Another path is related to Jewish archives. We know that already in Jerusalem, but also in the United States and in Europe, various Jewish communities in the city have been objects of large preservation, inscription, and digitization effort by numerous institutions all along the world. And therefore, Open Jerusalem adds a further piece in this mosaic, providing a new catalog for the collection of the Sephardi community held at the Historical Archives of Jerusalem Municipality. And Christian churches, of course, figure among other main protagonists of the Jerusalem landscape. Their complexity has been object of many studies, but their archives are still often underestimated. So Greek Orthodox, Roman Catholic, Protestant, Ethiopian, Armenian, Syriac archives shed light on the uninvestigated angles of the Christian presence in the city, and the interactions between members of the churches and other communities. And now I would like to turn to the digital tools we use to build a database. One is Atom, access to memory, access to memory is an open source software used at international level to describe archives. This database allows scholars and amateurs to combine and compare unknown archives in an innovative way to meet, although virtually, academic, but also non-specialists, and to engage in a debate on global issues. Atom responds to the criteria of disseminations of the European projects, so it is built with open source tools, and there is no cost to download any of the software required to run the Atom application, and the documentation is also freely available. Atom was built around the International Council of Archives descriptive standards, and it is also designed to be flexible enough for the adaptation to other descriptive standards. It is a multilingual tool, so it can also description of unlimited institutions in unlimited alphabets with a multi-repository approach environment. Here you can see some examples of the repository we used and we created. So after studying Atom features, we collected the existing research tools, which are, for example, inventories, finding aids, and other research aid samples existing in archives and libraries. We corrected them or we created new tools where there were no documents available. Then we imported all the catalogs in the Atom database, and we created the environment for the front end in Omeka. In the Open Jerusalem catalog, each item has a reference consisting of a prefix indicating the country where it is physically located, followed by the acronym of the archive it belongs to, then a number indicating its exact place within the collection. The reference will link to a title and description, details of the creator, and date of creation if known. I'm giving you this information because we will test together, so it can be important to know briefly the how to use this catalog. The following terms can be entered into the search field, so keywords or other forms of keywords and phrases and Boolean phrases. And if you want to have access to all the data with a complete range of search options and tools, after your basic search, you can filter your research, your results through facets that you will find on the left-hand sidebar of your screen. Facets include item type, date, archival record type, repository, creator, language of material, publisher, and digital object. You can also enter the number of items per page you wish to be displayed. To view the full information and links for a particular catalog record, you can click on the title. Its place in the hierarchy of related records is shown. So the record for an individual archival item usually states the identity area of the item. The identity area is a reference, the title, the dates, the level of description, the extent, and the medium. There is also the content area, so the repository and the name of creator, and the content and structure area with the description of the content of the item, and the catalog references area with the link to the inventory collection on the Atom database. You can also browse the inventory by hierarchy, and so the selected item you will see later will appear in orange. Moreover, every archival item is correlated with the part of section, presenting the main information of the collection the item is located in, including a section called Archival History that provides details on the archival funds, the collections, the existing finding aids, the conditions governing access, the bibliography on the collections, and other data that can be useful for your research. On the right sidebar, there are also tools to send comments to the teams, to share the item, to export it in PDF or XML format, and to add it to your cart. There is also space in the website where you can create your own card and to make comments to your own sources and to share it with other users. Where the digitized copy of the record is available, the item is accompanied by a digital objects section, which provide information on where to read and how to download the document. So now I would like to try together to use the platform. I will ask you I will ask a simple question. So if I say Jerusalem, what do you think about? And starting from that, I would like you to think about some keywords and to narrow your research to 2-3 keywords, if you agree. I think it would be useful to focus on places or people. For example, walls, gardens, gate, water, square, governor, doctor, midwife, teacher. I simply put them as a list, but feel free to try what you prefer. And then I invite you to use the filters on the left sidebar to filter your research. So according, as I told you before, according to dates, to repositories, to language, if you want to explore digitized items or not. And then to focus on 2 or 3 items. And I would like, I'm really interested to listen to your presentation of these sources. So you're encouraged to make connections between among repositories, to tell me if you found bugs or problems, or there is connections that are not clear, and to share your notes, to send me your remarks, and during this webinar, yeah, with an oral presentation or sending comments in the chat. So this is a way to create your unique research path and to test it. I hope it can be clear. Now I'm stopping the yeah, my screen. I would like to give you like 20 minutes if you agree, and then we can share your comments and your questions actually. So I'm sending in the chat the URL of the web platform. So let's say that at 10 to 3, some one of you will start presenting his or her notes. Is there any question before starting? Of course, you can ask me anytime, so feel free.
Can I ask maybe?
Sure.
No, thank you. Well, so we actually have to choose a topic and look for some results on Open Jerusalem, isn't it? Is it the task?
Yeah.
Okay, and then like presenting.
Yeah. So yeah, I would share the screen again if you agree. So we see together what I'm in. So you will find this kind of homepage. So for example, I will give you again the list that I was proposing you, but I know that you come from different disciplines, so that's why I don't want to narrow too much your research, your interests. For example, I just put a simple word in the database, you will see that you will find some suggested words. You're not all forced to follow these tips. It's simply to add the research. So for example, I put teacher. Here you will see that you will find 251 results. And here you see the filters that I was mentioning before, according to different categories. It depends also on your languages. I mean, interests and capabilities. So, but also I encourage you to test sources in languages that you don't know, because it's always interesting to explore unexpected alphabets. Here, for example, you see that there are many items without digital object. So one of the aspects that I didn't touch, but it's interesting to note, it's that Open Jerusalem is not primarily a digital, in the sense that digitization is not the primary, the first object of, first goal of the project. It's in inventories and archives, so it's really to allow researchers to go back to enter to get access to the archives, and then they will make their own research. But if they have inventories, and to create new inventories is really, as you can understand, scientific work. With these tools, they can digitize and make their own research. And also because if you if you visit an archive and you say, good morning, I would like to digitize your entire archive, probably you will not, especially in such a complex context as Jerusalem, nobody will allow you to enter. So we needed to find other key to enter archives. In some cases, archives themselves ask us to digitize the collection, and that's why you find thousands of documents digitized in the database. And in other cases, pretty unknown archives, for example, a tiny Ethiopian community, but pretty interesting, let us entering the archives, and we managed to prepare a new inventory of this completely unknown archive. This is such a great result. So it's to, I'm inviting you to test this kind of complexity. And for example, you see the different kind of creators. You're interested in the archives. For example, we can switch to languages. Okay, here we don't. Let's start with Italian. In this case, you will not find digitized items. So you see without digital object. But it's, if we open here, it's one item. How it's described one item. So all the categories that I was mentioning before. And here you see where the item is located in. And you see what's before and what's after. So, and it's important to understand the position of the document and what's where it is, and how to, which is the history of this archive. And let's see, for example, another document with the digitization itself. For example, the documents located in the National Library of Bulgaria, these documents were saved because they were meant to be destroyed. So because of collaboration with the National Library of Bulgaria, we found a way to preserve them. They are pretty interesting because they were Ottoman documents, for many reasons, were brought to Sofia. And here, for example, you see digital objects. And you click here, and you find the document. So for example, you can give us some impression to share if you found, for example, problems in accessing, or let's see, another, this is the name of an important city in Palestine. If we go again through digital objects, and then, for example, documents in English, here we will find it's located in the United States Archives, NAR Archives, the British National Archives, so dispatches, and again, so I'm encouraging you to do this kind of work, also according to the topics of your research, of your interest. I don't know if it's clear now what I'm meaning. Yeah, sorry, Professor Sabondi, I didn't read your message before. Do you think it's better if I report the task here on the chat, or?
I think it's clearer now. I think you've given us a clearer idea. Thank you.
Thank you. So just to give you other tips, what would you expect to find in a historical database on Jerusalem? So which kind of topics, and for example, test the database with your keywords that you have in mind thinking about Jerusalem. And if you, for example, if you don't find occurrences of what you were expecting to, this is interesting. So you can report also on that, because it can be that Israel, the cities, maybe is different from what people think, but also that we are not covering enough topic. So we received a question in the chat. I will leave you some minutes, some more minutes for the research. And I'm starting with trying to answer to these interesting questions. So Jerusalem is more or less a contested city. Yeah, Jerusalem is more. Jerusalem is absolutely, definitely a contested city. Today more than ever, maybe. And these impact, of course, the archives on the search parameters. It affects also the very concrete reality of the historian work. Just to give you a very immediate example, just starting from their nationalities, many researchers can't get access to Jerusalem. Also, Palestinian historians can't. So this limits immediately access to archives. And this clearly affects also research projects because although, as in this case, we talk about European projects, so founded by important institutions and also known for their political neutrality, immediately the Israeli-Palestinian conflicts enters also the research work. For example, choosing the team or in the relationship between members or between members and institutions. In other cases, for example, during violent crisis or clashes, we need to stop the search, to postpone missions. So of course, it affects the work. The bias of in the historical records, yeah, of course, that's why I was mentioning the citadinity concept, because also in creating archives, archivists or people who deal with the sources, because as you may know, archives are not always dealt by proper archivists, especially in cases where people don't think that documents are archives, as in the case of Jerusalem, but also in other cases. And as in the case of Jerusalem, archives are really everywhere. So people prepare simple list of boxes or dossier or files according to their categories. So the work of the archivist is important in order to reorder, recreate, although respecting the original order. And of course, it is influenced by a vision. In this case, the focus on this period, as I told you, the late Ottoman times and the British Mandate period was an age called by historians the age of possibilities, where the separation, division, the conflicts that we see today were different. It's not that I'm talking of a golden age where there were no conflicts, where everybody was in peace. That's not at all true. It was different. I mean, it was the institution itself, although presenting conflicts and contradictions, didn't deal with them as ethnic, religious, or not simply as ethnic, religious. So there was an idea of the city that transcend all these kind of separations, and this is not today the case. So also to re-enter the archives, trying to get free from all these bias, as you use this word, of course, is one of the missions of this kind of historical project. This is not all the case. This, we could say, that is one of the goals of, in general, public history. So to reach the public through a new way of conceiving the past beyond all the bias that populated it, especially in contested memories. And just to add a point, always following this question, maybe it's difficult to find it in a few minutes of search, but maybe you will have this feeling. You will see this increasing division with the later documents in the database, so documents concerning the 1930s and 1940s, where we start to see what will be after. I mean, 1948 war, you all know that's in 1948 the State of Israel was established. There was war between Israel and the Arab states. There were 700,000 refugees, Palestinian refugees after that war, and that after 1948 there were other wars. So as we approach the end date of, in this case, the 1940s, we immediately see these divisions. So is it possible to another question from the chat, is it possible to compile a corpus from Open Jerusalem to extract Christian, Muslim, Jewish views on development ideas? On development ideas, you mean, if you want to intervene, I mean, please, I would like to hear your voice, so let's not limit to chat.
Well, okay,
Thank you.
maybe I can clarify, Joseph here. Of course, it would be nice if your MySQL included, you know, descriptions of the writers, not only their official status, which is often the case. So it would be interesting to see or to see the text descriptions and to categorize texts into, let's say, the 3 or 4 main categories, like Christian, Muslim, Jewish, Armenian, if you want, and see in what way they envisaged the future of the country to some way, or in what way they discussed basic items like water or teachers, which you mentioned.
Yes, I mean, you have some ways to study that. If you, sorry, I go back to sharing the screen. So, so you were, we can use the word water. Water, as you were mentioning, is a crucial word, actually, because there is also an important book, which is La Soif de Jérusalem, and the claims over the water access fills the history of Jerusalem and the modern one, I mean. So you will see that we have almost 400 results for that, which is not bad. You were mentioning different communities, how they view the same questions. Actually, this is a way to explore the creator phase, because here you see who created what. So, for example, Jerusalem municipality, but coming back to religious categories, here you have consulate, for example, community of the Eastern Fathers of the Assumption. This is a Catholic congregation. Yeah, other Sephardic community of Jerusalem. So through the category of creator, you can explore, you can try to answer to your question, actually. Of course, the database has very important constraints, and you have to always to find a way to combine the complexity of historical search with the importance of clear categories. But yeah, to and the same is for language. It is true that we cannot identify one community with a language, and Jerusalem itself shows that a powerful way that there was a multiplicity of languages among the same community. Just to give you an example, And there is a marvelous source in the Franciscan Archives in Jerusalem collecting more than 1,000 visiting cards. So simply the visiting card of people, again, from the president of the municipality to the midwife. So very ordinary people came to the Franciscan friars asking to print their visiting card. Why? Because the Franciscan printing press was the most important in the city. And in here we see that these visiting cards were in many languages, and they were printed by let's say, Catholic institution. So religious and culture are not always the same, but and also there were workers working in the printing press, which were not at all Catholic. But yeah, another way to explore these multiplicities, of course, through languages. But I'm interested to your question, actually, if you want to add something more. Sorry.
Yes, thank you. I understand what you mean. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anybody want to start?
We have started.
Yeah, thank you. But just
through the archives, you mean? It's through
yeah,
database.
If someone of you wants to start to present to us, it's research and database.
Well, maybe since no one asks any questions, I continue. I looked for fascist. Of course, you understand that your database is up to 1940, and in the 1930s, the Führer and the Duce had many fans among politicians in Jerusalem, even religious leaders. But in your database, I find a school, obviously, but not too much that has, you know, at least fascist in the title or so. Is that a bias, or is that a coincidence, or is it simply that fascism was not important? The Turkish caused enough problems themselves.
So thank you. If you want to, just a technical question, you are all able to share your screens, or you have to be allowed to? Just because if you, Joseph, sorry, if you want to share your results, otherwise I will do it. Maybe Vincenzo can answer to, or yeah, I go. So we were talking about, I guess, this.
Exactly, this is exactly what I
this
found.
Search.
And then,
Okay.
of course, I thought maybe there is more because it's not in the title or so.
Yeah. So yeah, this another important point is that so the work is ongoing, and we encourage people to contact the team if they are interested in particular topics, because here if you can find, yeah, in the front end you have many results, but we also have other archives we are working on who are not now available on the website. However, in this, so it's always, if you're working on a subject, contact the team. For the occurrences of this word, there are already some studies of these topics in Palestine, and we try to give light to uncover topics. I'm stressing this point because this is particularly true for the Jewish archives, not mainly for this kind of inquiry, because looking at the global percentage of languages in the database, Hebrew is not as important as we can expect to, for example. Why? Not because it's not to cover the importance of the Jewish community in the city, not at all. The contrary, it was, and we have also a section with links to other institutions because there are already works on that. And we didn't want to replicate, to copy the works made by other institutions. And so we focused on uncovered or unlocked inventories. In this case, it's still interesting because the real social history of fascism in Palestine, this is lacking. I'm interested in that because I'm working on the cultural diplomacy in Palestine, and it's interesting because, for example, for musical diplomacy, so how music was used by institutions in the city to spread their intentions and values and ideas and political claims. Music was a tool in that, and it was used also by thesis circles in the city during the 30s and by the Franciscan custody in the friars, so the Franciscan friars, for the alignment politics to Mussolini. So I can send you some documents later related to that. In this case, I would say that it's not a matter of bias, but again, it's interesting because as we saw, together we can find hundreds of documents related to water, which is a pretty city government issue, rather than such a sensitive political category as fascism, as you mentioned. So thank you for this example.
May I go?
Sure.
Okay, thanks. Well, actually, my research project topic is quite modern, contemporary one. So I just try with the simple one in Open Jerusalem. Well, I was like curious to see how different communities that live in Jerusalem depicted their cities. So basically maps. So I just put map of Jerusalem or maps in the research bar, and well, I found some results, but not so many like documents or pictures. I don't know if I did something wrong or if I didn't choose some filter. Maybe you can help just to see how the different communities along history depicted their city and the divisions in it.
Yeah, sure. We can test it together. Okay. So I will, map is, it's a great word, so thank you for raising, because of course history matters, but geography matters too. So I wrote map, as you suggested us, and I filtered it by digital objects, so we will immediately see some documents. We find this, so the first item we have on the list is this one. So it's taken from, I mentioned to you the Ethiopian documents archives. And for example, this is an extremely important document because it's by Conrad Schick, who was a consul in Jerusalem, whose history is particularly fascinating. And so to check, here we can download it. You see also the poor quality of some digitization because they also, this is related to the condition of concretely the possibility to take images or to digitize the documents. But this document was completely, this entire archive was completely unknown. And the monastery itself, so this Granat monastery in Jerusalem was, I mean, the history of the Ethiopian community was unknown. And again, this is important with the previous question because it allows me to tell you that for the history of fascism, actually, it's the database is pretty much useful because the links between colonial history and the Ethiopian community and the Mussolini regime in Jerusalem, here you can find documents. So you will not find them entering the keyword, the classic keyword, but here you see the importance of the work of the historian, which is not simply to put a good keyword, it is to enter the documents, to check them, to study them, to make connections. So, for example, the Sultan monastery is another contested symbol of the city, although less known in the Holy Sepulchre. And to being able to study a map of this kind is pretty unique. And here again, for example, you see different languages. You have Ethiopian, here you see in Arabic. So it's definitely a good test. Here, for example, you have a map related to the train rail between Jerusalem and Jaffa, which is one of the most important topic of mobility history in this period. And again, to explore the maps, give to the historian much more information than maybe written documents. So on the Jerusalem maps, there is an important project by the Hebrew University of Jerusalem. And so we weren't allowed to migrate their maps to the database, of course, but we discovered some new maps. And that's why it's not only a quantitative work, but really a qualitative one. Did you find something else interesting related to maps?
Well, actually, I didn't find like with digital object filter before, no, so that was the problem probably. No, it's really fascinating. I could suggest also like maybe a quick link with the Modern Archive as well, because it would be like interesting to compare, for example, in this case, ancient maps with modern maps, and just to have a clear picture of the changes during time.
Sorry, what you're suggesting?
But because I was like thinking in my mind, like a research project, interesting one would be like to compare old maps with modern maps, or like maps along history, I don't know, of the 20th centuries. But I see here that there are ancient documents only. So maybe with the direct link, or simply yes, the direct link with modern archives that I think there are in Jerusalem a lot.
Okay.
Maybe a useful tool.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, in terms of maps, completely different, but we also use the OpenStreetMap to locate the archives we were describing. So just to show you that archives on Jerusalem are not only in Jerusalem, because yeah, Jerusalem is a global city, as many cities in the world, but with particular importance. And so the sources related to the history of the city are not only in the city. And this is important for connected history. So for example, if you are in Rome, you have, of course, the Vatican and the archives at the Farnesina, but this is simply just to show you. So thank you, Rico.
Thank you.
Does anybody want to give other tips or remarks? Did you try with the words and you had no results at all and you were discouraged or dissatisfied? Or on the contrary, you had thousands of results and you were in the middle of nowhere? Or, yeah, go. Thank you.
I know. I'm just saying there are no other questions in the chat.
Well, for example, I could confess what I did, and which was very sort of randomly. I checked languages because I thought there would be. It came out as probably too wide a search, because it came out as a real ragbag of different things. Like if you want to try, including like manuals, probably. And also something else I did was to look at newspapers, because I wanted to see what kind of archives there were. And then at some point I followed up the newspaper or magazine of a British school, because I wanted to see that and couldn't actually get onto it. So that's just to report problems, because I suppose everyone else will not report problems, but rather.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, thank you. Newspapers is it's a bit interesting topic.
Wide.
No, but it's it's important because of course we were talking about public opinion, so newspapers are crucial. And just to tell you that this is not only so the aim of the project is not only to create a database. Database again is a tool to convey research and to encourage the researchers in coming back to the archives. I'm saying that because there is in the website you will also find another section of let's say library, because you may be found also bibliographic reports which are not archival reports in your search. So we try to update bibliography on Jerusalem, and also you will see that there are publications. And because the project created an open access book series with Braille, and one of the main books is Ordinary Jerusalem, and which is a almost a 600-page book with more than 25 articles. And among these articles, you can read documents. You can read studies on the press. So again, archives and scholarship talk together. This is another way to for the scholar to enter, for example, the category of newspapers, is to check some start from names. So, for example, Ben Yehuda was, which is one of the main intellectual, Jewish intellectual in the 19th century history of the city, but not only of the city, of course. You know, Ben Yehuda was a person who in some way invented the modern Hebrew and vehiculated it through the press, exactly. So he founded newspapers. And so to browse the database through this name, here you will find documents related to his action as editor, as journalist. So just to tell you that, and this is always true, sometimes you don't find immediately the keys of access to your topic, so you need to find other ways to enter the documents or the databases. and people are another way. Press cuttings, for example.
Yeah, it's certainly meant not for a sort of a preliminary introduction. You have to know what you're looking for, so you need something a bit more specific. Because I was browsing casually and using very wide.
Sure. Yeah, this is also important, I think, for students and also for PhD students, because I'm thinking about myself when I was not many years ago, so I'm a postdoc. I was a PhD student. I approached the databases as really as a sort of truth machine. So also really to take the time to know the tool, what it can give and what it can't actually. It's important. And what your question also is interesting, because it's the limit and at the same time the possibilities of the public history as a discipline, because Open Jerusalem is not the typical public history project, and this again it's related also to the conflict itself. We cannot imagine, for example, collection of documents from the people as it was made in other cases of public history projects, or I mean, the conflict affects directly these possibilities. At the same time, we tried to experience ways of collaborative work also through the database. So this is another way to reach a general audience, which is not a specialist, forcibly one. And I can tell you, for example, that most of the requests of information coming to the website that I receive on my mailbox are from, let's say, ordinary people. I mean, not specialists or academic one, who are interested in their relatives in Jerusalem. So genealogies are increasing, discipline and also matter of interest for people, and people check for their relatives in the database. And this is linked to languages, because the same name can be written in different ways. So, for example, a person wrote me, I cannot find my relative who was member of the municipal council, and actually it was spelled in another way. This is the complexity of languages. Many of you, I'm sure, are more expert than me in that. It's also pretty interesting to delve into that. Any other comment, correction, bug? My research is about Muslim women, but there are no useful resources. Okay, if you want to speak it, that's would be great. Just I can tell you that women was so at the end. I mean, last year we organized a conference in Venice, and we asked scholars to test the database, as I'm doing with you. According to some keywords that it shows, and one of them chose the word women, and she presented a fascinating path through some documents. Of course, she was specialist of the city, so it's not at all to contradict your question. I don't know if you, yeah, I mean, in which topic of you're working on, if it's history, anthropology, or if you want to give us some more tips, it can help. History. So which period of time, with which context?
Contemporaneo.
No, I can hear you. Okay. No, I hear that you meant that you said contemporaneous, so contemporary history, so great. Yeah, which, I mean, geographically where, or which topics? No, you don't have to say it's yours. Okay. Yeah, it's another, sure, it's another context, but I think also to compare and to find the dissimilarities, it's interesting. So I don't know your precise periodization, because contemporary is pretty large, but yeah, again, take that. I don't know if you, okay. So after the revolution, I guess, however, that I mean, so to compare a country to a city is always different. But an historian of the Middle East, I think that it's important also to enlarge your research. And I don't know, I am asking you a question, if you want to reply in the chat or to try with the microphone. Which kind of archives are you using actually for your research? Okay, so you're maybe a first-year PhD student, if I understand well. Okay, great. So you are basically starting with the bibliography, and then you will maybe move to the archives. I don't know if you speak Farsi or not. So especially now, maybe that you're not on the subject. I mean, you're starting with the preliminary studies to start to study documents not forcibly related to your topics of research directly can be useful, because I don't know which kind of if you will you be able to work on the Iranian documents, or okay, so to start with the now that you can't travel, actually, also to just give some, some times of attention. It's another way to be more aware when you will have to use databases focusing on your subject of research. Thank you, Anna. Does anybody want to ask something else?
Hi, hello, I'm Elena, and I have a curiosity to ask you. In my last year of university, I have done a little stage at the Archivio Diocesano di Modena in Onantola. And during this period, we were, well, the most important work was to answer question and the email to our, to the people that frequent the archive. And once we received an email from the archive that you present today, and they ask for all the fragments that we have, that the archive possess in Jewish language. They say that this was very important because they were about to search all the available documents in Jewish language that they were around the world that were very important. So my question is that something that you know about, or, well, I don't know, and things you have to say? It was just a curiosity, but it's very, very interesting. Thank you.
Thank you, Elena. So you were saying that, do you remember the name of the archive who wrote to the archive of the Archdiocese of Modena? You can't remember it?
I think that the archive was the National Archive of Jerusalem. It's possible, yeah?
National, maybe the Israel State Archives.
I wasn't the one to take up the email. So
yeah, don't worry.
1 year and a half ago. So
no, don't worry. It's definitely it's not a problem. No, it's a way to confirm what we were saying before about Jewish archives. So Jewish institutions, for cultural, historical, also political in some ways reasons, are really, a reference in terms of archival collections. And in Jerusalem, if you want to study the Jewish history of the city, you will find many institutions with wonderful collections, treated perfectly, cataloged in a scrupulous way. And so, it's really a model of archiving. So it doesn't surprise me that they can be interesting to documents also, of course, outside Jerusalem. And this reminds us to the map that I was showing before as Jerusalem as a global city, because documents related to Jerusalem are really all along the world because of Jerusalem history. Everybody was passing through Jerusalem for religious, cultural, political reasons. So really, it's easy to find documents on Jerusalem as you tested also in the archives of a town like Modena and in Archdiocese of Modena. It's interesting also because the importance of the documents in Hebrew in Modena is known but not studied, and this will be probably a matter of further studies. And so I really hope to work on that and to approach the Jewish document, the Hebrew Jewish documents in this Mutina Hebraica, let's say, that is Modena. So I know that the documents you were mentioning are already digitized. For example, it would be great and really important to find a way to pass from digitized documents to some sort of transcription, and in some cases these are unwritten documents, so it's more complicated. But for example, the National Library of Israel has an important project on passing from digitized documents and unwritten documents to writing, to electronic writing, so to the electronic transcription. So I'm sure that if you are interested to that, there are many possibilities of research and work.
Okay, I think we've probably come to, if there's no other question on the on the chat, I think we'll thank you very much. It would be lovely to receive the PowerPoint if you can, and otherwise you because it might take time to explore things, and we'll send you the recording as soon as possible. And for the moment, just a big thank you. Thank you very much, and thanks everyone. We'll be maybe in touch again next semester for another session. For the moment, the lecture series for this autumn is over with today, and I thank everyone for the participation and look forward to seeing you again soon. Bye.
Thank you. Feel free